Okay, Teacher Think here, and typing. So typing is such an important skill. It makes such a difference for you in not just your regular life, but in school. Okay, a lot of times there's a big focus on, well, what do you need for your job in the future and everything. And typing is something you have right now that you can use in school. It is something that everybody can learn, but most people don't. And why not is one of the things we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to get right into the good stuff. But if it's something everybody can learn, but why don't most people do it? The reason you thing you should be asking yourself is, why don't I do it? Because that just automatically gives you an advantage over other students for grades, applications, getting into college, etc. Why not avail yourself of it? Well, all right. So just getting right into the good parts here. I would like to ask you which one of these three ladies, if you could guess, is probably going to learn how to type. Okay, if you're just listening, don't worry about it. I'm about to explain it. I think it's going to be the lady in front. And you want to know why? Because she is not looking at her hands. This lady is looking at her hands, and so is she. You will not learn how to touch type if you are looking at your hands. It says I'm lagging, so if I get a little squeegee, okay, that's the reason. Uh, if you're looking at your hands, you are not ever going to learn how to type. People think they will, like I'll get used to it and then I'll just get better at that, and it really never happens. So what do you need? This is the 95% of what you need. Uh, you need these things. Typing covers. I'm going to tell you what I typed in. Keyboard covers for typing instruction. Okay, and this is the company that actually makes them, and this is what they look like. They're these little orange things that you put over the keyboard. They're made out of rubber, so you just put them on top like this, and then you can't see the keys. So you're forced to not use them. You can't look down at your hands as you type. So what you have to do is get that muscle memory that will make it automatic to learn. Okay, we'll come across this term here in a minute, automaticity, and it's really just muscle memory, reflex. It's basically like anything else. You learn how to walk, then you don't have to think about walking. Then you can do other things while you're walking. You learn how to pitch. Okay, you practice and practice and practice, so it comes automatically to you, and you're not thinking about every motion. Talking is like that for babies. Just think of the effort, the mental effort they put into taking a step, and how often they fail, and talking too. But once they have that down, then they can think about other things. That's what we want with typing. We want this to be your words coming down into your fingers without thinking, where's that T? Where's V? I need to look, blah, blah, blah. Using all four fingers and not using just the two fingers is something that will speed you up, but it also just makes it easier on your hands. So coming back to this, I think you can see again, if she's not looking down. Now she is looking at the screen, and I want to take a moment right now to talk about how when I learned to touch type, one of the things that was, and it wasn't from a teacher, I taught myself, you should not look at the screen either. You ought to be able to type with your eyes closed, okay? And the way to really get that is you take a piece of paper, okay, that has a printout of the keyboard. This is a different keyboard, but it'll look like that. Print it out, set it up next to the monitor someplace, and you're allowed to look at that as you type. That's fine, because your mind is not on the screen and it's not in your hands, and you actually are at that point getting the muscle memory to where those keys are. All right, that's like 95% of learning how to type. Okay, other than that, you're really just refining. So let's talk about a couple of these things that I've got here. Some websites. Well, this one is about when you start touch typing. Okay, I like this one because of this picture right there. Now I've heard people say we don't need to teach typing because kids are just using their thumbs now, and this puts the lie to that. I mean, how do you do that? Okay, explain that to me. Wrong. Until we've got some kind of a technology that just somehow gets completely around typing, that's not going to be an issue. And it's also not going to be dictation, because just try it, okay? Just try dictating a paper and see how it looks and how much work it takes and how much you have to go back and everything like that. I encourage you to do that. It's got its uses, but Not really for that. This talks a little bit about the history of typing and everything, and how you really need to use your full hand, use the home rows, and that's how to type. That's how to learn. This one, Education World, teaching keyboarding more than just typing. All right, this is a little more about how you teach keyboarding, because this is a good quote right here. Many teachers think it takes nothing to teach keyboarding, but they're wrong. Can anyone teach a science or math course? Are you a classroom teacher who is also the keyboarding instructor? Then discover in this article everything you need to know to make keyboarding instruction a success. Okay? Now, the thing is, I don't really like this comparison. Do you need to be a science or math teacher? You don't need to be very good. You don't even need to know how to touch type to teach touch typing. You just need to basically just enforce the rules. It is not hard. Okay? You need no certification. We're way into certifications in this world. It's like, I can't teach touch typing. I don't have a certification. Yeah, baloney. You absolutely can do it. It's just so easy. So, youngest students, when to begin. All right, this is talking about how a little bit the history of it, where you used to be taught to high school students, and it was mainly for a vocation. So you'd be a typist or something like that. There'd be a real reason to be learning how to type. Otherwise, you could get along with just writing. If you became a doctor or a lawyer, you would just dictate to your secretary, and the secretary would type it out. And that world is gone. So lawyers, doctors, they're doing their own typing most of the time. I mean, one of the typing websites I've come across was from a doctor. It's like how to type really fast. And he's explaining, well, he's a doctor. Okay, it's because they do their own notes these days. They don't dictate them to somebody else. But it just, apart from the vocation, your vocation when you're in school is to be a student, and you will do a better job as a student if you know how to do it. All right, what if you're a keyboarding teacher? Well, look how simple it is. You teach technique, blah, 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 and then you get to accuracy, and then you do speed. Okay, it's a motor skill. It takes practice. So why don't schools do it? Because if a student has an incredible amount of motivation to do it, he can teach himself. No question about it. But it is a long, boring process, and it's very easy to put off, and that's what usually happens. So you really need a teaching instructor who knows a couple of things. Number one, you need to know that you have to have those covers on your keyboard. You can't get around it. Schools don't like buying anything that they don't feel like they need to buy. They don't see the value in not looking at the keys. They say, well, I learned how to type myself, and I do fine. Yeah, they probably do fine, with hunt and peck and two fingers and everything. It's not that bad, but it's also not that good. And for a cover that costs like $15 or something, and for a school, they only charge them like 10 or $11. I mean, please, it's basically just copping out. Also, it's boring to teach typing, as I said. A lot of teachers just don't really want to do it because, it's not a whole lot of pleasure for anybody involved. There's just that end goal of having a much better skill. So look at this, more drill and everything like that, more tips. The tips are pretty good, but you don't have to worry about it. Talks about carpal tunnel syndrome. I'll pause for a minute and talk about how and why I learned how to touch type. Well, I didn't know how to do it all the way through graduating college. I was one of these guys, and I thought that was fine. But I always thought, I really ought to learn how to do it. And I'm like, well, I'll try not looking, and it really doesn't work. So at one point, I injured my leg pretty badly, and I was laid up for at least 3 weeks. And I said, all right, I'm going to not just watch TV for this time. I'm going to make something of this and do something worthwhile with the time. And I learned how to touch type. Okay, I mean, I wasn't going anywhere, so I did it. And once I got it right, I was just thinking to myself, my God, if I'd only known how to do this, especially in college, but also in those key years, junior and senior year, when you're thinking about where you're going to apply and everything. It would have made such a difference. It would have made life so much easier. You can tell who knows how to touch type when you get a paper. Okay, the ones who are hunting and pecking are this long, Ones who touch type, those are that long, and they're better. Okay, because they're not devoting time figuring out mental energy figuring out where the keys are. They're just typing. So I learned. I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit. I learned to type with a Dvorak keyboard, and I did it for two reasons. First of all, I had read that it's a better keyboard. For me, I think it is. Okay, the keys are all in a different order. The vowels are here and the other letters are here. So, for a word like the, look at your QWERTY keyboard, what you have to do to type the. And this, you just go THE just straight across. So the most common vowels are here. Most common consonants are there. Least common consonants are way off where your pinky has to go, stuff like that. So there was a lot of thought put into placement of keys. I found it to be a good idea. Okay, it worked for me also because I didn't have a keyboard cover. I'd never even heard of one, and I said, I know I'm just going to keep looking at the keys. And I said, well, where do I get a Dvorak keyboard? How could I do this? And then you could buy them. They were like $300 or something, or you could like replace the keys. And after I'm like, wait a minute, why would I want to replace the keys anyway? If you're not supposed to look at the keys. So what you do is you can go into your settings on any computer, Mac, PC, whatever. They're a little bit different, but they're fairly easy. And you put in Dvorak keyboard. There's a whole list of other keyboards you can put in. You've got your choice of many. And it changes the keys, but it doesn't change the actual physical keys. So you can't look at the keyboard anyway. Now, a couple of them are in the same place, like A is in the same place. But in general, it's a waste of time to look at the keyboard because that's not where the letters are anyway. These ones are all the same. And guess what? Guess which row I still have yet to completely master? The top row. Yep, okay. There it is. Okay, but if you get one of these, that's going to be a lot easier. You just put it right over the keyboard. You can use the QWERTY keyboard. You can use a different keyboard, whatever. It will keep your eyes off of it. All right, so we're back to that. Oh, and this one, this is this Canadian thing, and it's a really good article, actually. I got a lot out of it, because it's asking about why schools aren't why don't we learn typing in high school today? Okay, and it gives us some good reasons. So let's see. We've got human capital investment. Yeah, that's kind of their first reason. They thought of it as a way to get a job. And then later it's like not really a job so much anymore. So why learn it? You could just learn it your own if you want it. But it's much more than that. It's for something that you need in school, not after school. A lot of people say, well, people come in, they kind of get used to it, and they already know the keyboard. Well, this is a good reason for where it's saying, when to teach keyboarding. It should be probably around like 5th grade or something like that. And you want to get them before they develop the bad habits, because a bad habit is very hard to break. You want them to build good habits. I don't think you necessarily should be doing that much with the computer at that age, but you want to get the actual training in pretty early and do it right. There's another article here. I won't dig through for the quote, but they're talking about how the other teachers have to be supportive, and that's actually a big problem too. A lot of teachers just aren't supportive of the typing instruction. They just figure they can do it on their own. I already know how to do it myself, or I do 2 fingers and I'm fine, and this is a waste of time. I don't feel like doing it. It's a pain. I don't want to have to keep track of that. I don't want to have that negative interactions with saying don't look at the screen, or where's your cover, all that stuff. But sometimes as a teacher you've got to suck it up and just do it right. I don't know what else to say. Here's a good quote where they're saying by the time most students enter high school, they have been using QWERTY keyboard attached to the computer for years, many without a lesson. This allows for greater exploration of the creative applications of the technology. Okay, this is just baloney. They just don't want to do it, basically. They just don't want to do it. Or they don't know. A real touch typist looks at people with these excuses and they say, I think you just really don't know how much easier and better it is. Fourth theory is that teaching typing is not much fun. So yeah, there are plenty of games. The typing games only go so far. They're better than nothing. They really are, because at least you kind of feel like you're making progress and you're getting points and everything. But if you're playing those games with the keyboard not covered up, you still aren't going to learn typing. It is very time intensive, so schools don't want to set aside a lot of time. They don't want to hire a teaching instructor. I think they kind of don't. Not really, as long as people are on board with the system. So then they say, well, practice at home, and then they'll give you a list of things to do at home, and the kids never do it, and they put it off, and then they do it looking down just to get the assignment done, and they learn nothing, Rightly so do they avoid it because they aren't learning anything. I mean, you lose motivation when you're getting nothing out of it. Now, by the way, I was talking to someone recently where I was saying, well, what did you get out of playing Mavis Beacon and these different games? I mean, you didn't really learn how to type at school, did you? And this person said, well, yes, I did. I said, well, you know what? I bet I know exactly who taught you that. And I named the person, and she said yes. And you know why? It's because he went out and he, with his own money, bought the keyboard covers for their typing instruction. That's the difference. That is the difference. All right, and that's really pretty much all it is. Cover the keyboard, practice a certain amount every day, use all 4 fingers, use a program. So you start with, just a few keys and then you expand. Make sure you use the right fingers. Don't look at the screen. Set up something that's next to it where you look at a printout of your keyboard. And in a mere 400 hours or so, you'll be a touch typist. Actually, it won't take that long. But but you'll that's how you learn, and you'll be so glad you do it. Now, I just want to add one thing at the end, though. I mean, you can turn me off if you want, but this is funny because this is such a great example of awful advice. This generation not only has grown up with the backspace key, with the backspace key, but is used to having spell check and a dictionary at their fingertips every time they write anything, right? So who needs to learn? You just have the computer do it. The world has changed, and I'm not sure our curriculum has caught up with it. So here's my belief, and my belief along is that as I've watched elementary students closely over the past 4 years, we should not be teaching typing as we learned it, home row keys, etc. We should be exposing students to the keyboard as much as possible and allow them to develop typing techniques that work for them. No, absolutely not. Exposing them to the keyboard will not teach them how to type. They'll develop their own lousy system and bad habits and never get past a certain level. That's what will happen. And it's also just such an excuse to say, oh, go on the computer, get it out of my face. Then you don't have to deal with them, which is too bad. Exposure. I mean, here's what I believe. We should expose students to the keyboard as much as possible, Well, why not put it under their pillow, too? Maybe that'll help them. That's exposure, right? Maybe that'll help them learn. What nonsense. Every student starting in kindergarten should be exposed to a keyboard as often as possible. I don't think so. Kindergarten, you kidding? They can barely move their fingers. And screen time is so bad for kindergartners. In first grade, the focus should be to have students use 2 hands on the keyboard. This is not how you build it up. No, you do start with 2 fingers with your hands placed right with the little bumps, and you practice 2 keys, and then you bring in these 2 fingers, and then you start adding. No, not just having 2 hands. Nonsense. By 3rd grade, typing should be part of the writing curriculum. Again, he just thinks it's going to come in out of nowhere, and now, I've looked. 5th grade students should be required to turn in at least one typewritten assignment a week. Whatever, 120 minutes exposed to a computer keyboard. It's such nonsense. Now, this person has a blog and stuff, and I read a few other things, and he, as soon as he's challenged, he turns on a dime and saying, well, I don't mean it's just exposure. There should also be some instruction and some structure, and he's basically just telling people whatever they want to hear, and that is of no use to anyone. So I'm going to put these, this thing in there. I think they're about $15 a piece. You can get them in Amazon too. It's kind of sad that I put in keyboard covers for typing instruction, and that's the exact thing, but it comes after Amazon. Okay. I really think it's better to use this company because if you call these people, here's contact, I bet you're going to get a real person who actually knows something about the product. And you might want to keep a couple of dollars in their pockets rather than Amazon's pockets, maybe, but I bet you'd have a better experience going straight through them, finding the right one, the right skin. They're only about 10 or 12 different types of skins, but they'll make sure you get the right one, I think. They're not giving me any money, by the way. Just so that's clear. This is not an advertisement for them. That's just the best one. So I'll put that in, and how to find that stuff. And I hope you have your children. Oh, you know what? And I also wanted to add one thing. Why else did I learn? What else did I get out of the Dvorak keyboard? I do think it's easier. I just believe that you'll find people who say that, well, we've tested, it's not really fast and QWERTY. I'm skeptical. Uh, you do too much typing with your left hand on the QWERTY keyboard, and that starts wearing it out. And I can tell you that I used to have, not carpal tunnel, but I used to have a pain here on my wrist, holding it like this and moving it around too much and using the pinky too much. And with the Dvorak keyboard, that totally went away. Totally went away. So ergonomically, it's very good. So enjoy your typing. It's a great opportunity. You just have to follow through, and you'll probably have to do it yourself because the school, you can talk to them about it, and generally they will avoid it. They'll avoid the question. They'll say that they have a program, and they're not really doing anything about it. And I hate to be negative about schools because usually you just don't know the full situation if you have a complaint, but this is one where it's pretty clear. It's not that hard. It just takes work. Suck it up. So enjoy your time with typing. It will definitely be worth it. And see you next time.